Right. It's 2 p.m. Eastern time, so good afternoon or morning, depending, or evening, depending on where you are. Um, so here is a session on AI-ready data, and today it's a workshop format that we will not spend a lot of time talking, but we actually will have a lot of times doing activities on the AI-ready data assessment, specifically for climate applications, and collecting the feedback of how you think about the assessment process. And all our slides are on this Mentimeter link. So if you can go to menti.com and put in the code, the 8-digit codes that you can follow along with our presentation. So, or if you prefer to scan the QR code, you can do that as well. And while we are letting people settling down in this room, and I assume that people all have this Mentimeter, basically mentimeter.com, put in the code 15356461. So for people online, if you can give me a thumbs up if you are in the Mentimeter, that would be great. I cannot see thumbs up. I'm assuming that you all give me a thumbs up. So now getting everyone settled in, I want to understand who we have here in this session. So okay, yep. It's okay. We just had lunch. It's the food coma. 15356461. I see Ken's trying to scan the QR code. I see a lot of hearts on Mentimeter. Thank you. Are we all good with Mentimeter? Okay. Oh, great. I don't even need to explain what we're trying to do here. So what we're trying to do right now, give people to settle down and also understand who we have here in this room. If you are on Mentimeter, and you can just use a scale to choose like how those statements describe about yourself. Like, do you mostly do data analytics, or are you mostly produce the data for people to use, or you are a data manager? And have you done the assessment before, for example, the fair assessment, or you're just purely curious? And or if we have some of the funding agency managers here, you found research in AML. So those are the questions we want to know, that who we have in this room, this looking at the spider web, that we have 25 people in Mentimeter right now. And for the new people who just joined, if you look at the screen sharing, there's on the top, you go to menti.com, there's a code 15356461. That's the code for this Mentimeter link. And Stacy, if you can put the code in the chat, that'd be great. Okay, we have a lot of data managers here, which is good. We want the data managers to provide feedback on our assessment tools. We also have people, have people have the experience doing assessments, like fair assessments. And we also have a lot of curious people in this room, which is always welcome. And any fresh eyes on the and feedback will be much welcome. I'm gonna give it one more minute for this activity before we move on to some logistics of the session today. Awesome, thanks. I think data manager is the powerhouse for this conference for sure. All right, we are moving on because we already have 40 people in the Mentimeter providing their self identity. So before we move on, I want to emphasize in the community participation guidelines. Sorry, the typo. Be respectful, be direct but professional, and being inclusive. And don't be that penguin. This is a picture I took over the weekend where a penguin is trying to steal the walkie-talkie from the people who are feeding him. So don't be that person in this group. So if you want to find out more information about the participation guideline, you can find it on the ESIP website. So this is how we're going to operate for today's session. First of all, we're going to give an overview of what AI-ready data efforts has been evolving within the ESIP data readiness cluster. And we will have Stacy Robinson to give a quick review of the assessment tool that she has been putting together based on the AI readiness checklist that the cluster has put together. And with that, we're gonna move on to a hands-on assessment activity so everyone can participate either using your own data sets or assessing your own data set, or we have a list of those climate-related data sets that you can be the assessor for those data sets. And we will take a break and get your feedback on the entire assessment process, how that is going, and what can be improved in it. And last but not least, at the end of our session, we want to do some more fun activity, which is a design sprint. So now we have the assessment results. We want to know how you think the assessment results should be presented to the data users to help them find the data set fits their need for the AI research applications. And here's a one-stop shop link for the session today. It's bit.ly/AI, capital AI, dash ready, lowercase. So I am gonna show you what is in this folder. So if you go to bit.ly/AI dash ready, that has 4 files and 1 folder. The file Google Doc is the meeting notes. So please go into the meeting notes, put in your name and information to check in. We want to know who is in the session. And so I'm gonna give you a minute, go in this Google Doc. Sometimes you need to stare people to do the job. So for the people online, if you are using the Sketch or the Kiko chat, you can directly find this Google Doc in Kiko chat. So this is the meeting documents. Please, I think we have more than a dozen people, so please fill in your information here. So this is first, the main document we're gonna use to provide your notes and feedback in this. And we also in this Google Doc, you will find link to the slides and all those background materials all there. So this will be everything in one place. And there are other files that we're gonna go through it when we get there. So let's move on to the activity. First, to review about what the data readiness cluster has been doing. So the data readiness cluster started about a year ago, or yes, just about a year ago after a session during the winter or January ESA meeting in 2021, talking about how we can improve the data management practice to support the AI innovation and development. So this fresh off the press on the right side, which is one 2-pager, front and back, of the AI readiness, data readiness cluster, the activity and motivation and what we have been doing. The QR code leads you to the AI readiness checklist. And thanks to Allison Mills, who are with ESIP put together a blog post about the effort the class has been doing and the checklist. So that will have more information about the checklist. And that now we're going to talk about why we do AI-ready data. So this is a direct quote from the National AI Research Resource Task Force interim report that was published May 2022. And if you are interested in reading the entire report, which is almost 100 pages, you are welcome to do so. But here are the 5 key findings I find really relevant for the AI-ready data. So based on the interim report of the task force, first thing, it emphasized the high quality, trusted, dense, and transparent data resources are the critical piece of the AI R&D. And also data quality as well as data curation are substantial challenges for AI research and application development. It's not just in any specific domain, it's cross research domains. And it also has a substantial cost to combine the linking heterogeneous data. We all know any analysis will not just rely on one data set. Often it requires the linking different data set to build the application development. And last but not least, that there are a lot of opportunities to leverage existing and ongoing activities for data for the public good. That's one of the focus of the session is to work with the community to identifying a list of climate data sets can enable the AI applications, either it's for climate research or the adaptation by linking with social economic data. So this is our motivation of doing AI-ready data and developing community standards for this process. And there are a lot of movements in the AI world, which is called data-centric AI. And often when we talk about AI systems, it's about the combination of code and data. And traditionally, a lot of the research and development have been focusing on the code piece, which is the on the left side or on the left side of this equation. And focusing on the code and software and tools development, that is sometimes people call it model-centric approach to improve or develop new code and new models to do that. And there are recent movements shifting towards focusing on data. So the Andrew is the one of the key person in deep learning as well as the data-centric AI. His direct quote is, data-centric AI is the discipline of systematically engineering the data used to build the AI system. So it can be much more efficient to use data-centric AI to improve performance and also increase the trust, because data-centric approach, well, this might be counter the points from our keynote this morning, but at least one step towards the building the trust of the AI system and applications. I promise I'm almost done talking. And right now, I really enjoy reading this paper, the hidden technical that in machine learning systems, that it has been emphasizing similar points, which is that we have putting a lot of emphasis on the code and tools and service developments on how to build machine learning systems, how to build machine learning models. But oftentimes it's the other piece that is really the hidden technical debt that really we need to repay. That you can always do those quick developments with some of the data cleaning and preparation. But if you want to make it sustainable and maintainable in a cost-efficient way and in a performance-driven way, that data really need to be at the center of this machine learning and AI systems. So the data readiness cluster consider AI-ready data have 4 components, where the preparation piece is to reduce the burden on the users to prepare the data for a specific application. And for quality, it's basically deciding the fit for purpose for any specific applications, whether you have missing values that may limit your application to certain cases. And that quality is another factor to enable the trustworthy AI. For documentation, is to enable the understanding and the use of the data, that the documentation, including the tools, tutorials, and other things for how users can use this data before they really need to open a file. And the access is to ensure the efficiency and facilitate the reproducibility on the AI applications analysis. So if you want to read into more details of the AI readiness components, that you can go to this DOI link on the slides. That is also on your Mentimeter link. That it's a full list of the AI readiness checklist developed by the cluster. Here is just a quick screenshot. I'm not going into details. I can talk for hours if we want to talk about it, but we're not going to do that. So we have this tool as a way to help the community to improve the data management practice and to specifically targeting for the AI ML applications. But I think it can also be used to improve those data for other application analysis. And also this can be used to ensure new data AI and ML native. So there are some ongoing conversation, at least within NOAA, to use this as a not requirement, but a recommendation for the newly funded projects to consider how to improve the data's AI readiness in the next funding round. So if you haven't noticed the theme of pictures of birds in my slides, you should know that now, and also have shirts with birds on it. So there's a theme in here. But here I already give you an overview of the AI-ready data. And now I would like to have questions before we move on to next steps. Okay, I didn't see any hand raised. I assume that I did a good job. I'm gonna ask Stacy to come up to introduce the assessment tool that you're gonna work with in the next hour or so for this. So yes, Stacy.
Awesome. Thank you, Douglas. Thank you, everyone, for coming. I'm so excited to see this many people in the room ready to help pilot this checklist and evaluate some data. So if you haven't already done so, go to the folder that the bit.ly takes you to, and then the subfolder in that's for the pilot.
When's that?
Oh yeah, should we show them?
You don't have to go there.
Oh, that's true. It's linked in the document.
It's linked in Google Docs. So if you go to the Google Doc, there's this place that says step 1, make a copy of assessment sheet. So that you click that link, it will ask you to create a copy. Make a copy. After you make a copy, I would encourage you to rename this by simply change this piece of the file with your name, so that we know it's somebody did that. It's not just a empty copy. For example, I'm gonna put my last name here, and okay, I think I have created one. Let me put Stacy's name here. So this is the form belongs to you. And now Stacy will walk you through of this. Do you want to use this form? Or here, maybe use this slides.
Yeah, I'll go through the slides. So this is in the, can I go back and forth just a bit? Okay, so you'll notice a couple of tabs. So the overview, we're pretty much just going to talk about that today, but so you have that, or like if we're giving this to someone that's just going to download it and do this completely on their own, they would have that overview to read. And then what I'm going to go through in detail now is this second tab, the AI Ready Assessment Form. And so then, let's see, which tab? Which one is this one?
Yeah.
Okay, so you will notice in the top, we would like to get some information about you, whoever is doing the assessment. And I mean, this can be optional. If you don't want to share your name or email, that's just fine. But we would really, really appreciate if you would mention the data set name and any links, and also any data, the metadata format, because even if you don't want to be identified, this will help us to know what types of data or data sets and metadata formats our assessment works really well with or might be more troublesome with. So if you want to remain anonymous, that's fine, but please don't let your data set remain anonymous. And then the next thing you can see over there is this list that basically just gives you some information on what you're going to find with all these drop-down arrows. So we are going to be scoring these different areas of the checklist. So you'll see, Douglas mentioned those the 4 areas of AI data readiness. So preparation, quality, accessibility, and documentation. And so within each of those areas, there's a number of questions. And so for the answer to each of those questions, you'll use a dropdown that'll have one of these scores. And so, you see some may just be completely not applicable to the data set you have, but many, you may just not be able to find the information at all, or it's at least not documented in the metadata in a way that you can find it. So then that would be a 0. And then you'll see there are a number of ways that you could answer yes. So, maybe you're the data POC or the data expert who made this data, and so you know the answer to this question because that information lives in your head. You could put yes, but it's going to score a 1 if the information doesn't live outside the data expert's head. And then you're going to put a 2 if, maybe like for some of these where it talks about, the data dictionary and references for the data dictionary, maybe that's at least linked in the metadata. So like you might have to follow a link to get to that, but the link is at least provided in the metadata. So that would be a yes with a score of 2. Or if the information is really clear in the metadata, you could find it as a human, and it's also in there in a structured format that a machine could find it as well, then that's going to score a 3. So you'll see the scoring system is really more about the accessibility and the ease of finding the information. So you're not necessarily making a value judgment about how, critical that one question is within your data set, but kind of how easy it is to find. And so, yeah, so you'll see all the way down, we've got all the different questions from our checklist. And then another really important piece of this, because remember, this workshop today is not really about what the score is for these particular data sets or your own data set. We're really here to evaluate this tool. So we also really want to have any comments or feedback that you have for these different questions. And so maybe that is, this question seems irrelevant, or I wish it was asked this way, or it might be, this question was really difficult to find an answer for. I don't even know how you would answer this question. Or maybe it's a tip like, oh, I found this under this metadata heading, and that might be helpful for other folks to know as we kind of improve our guide to using the assessment form. So all forms of comments and feedback are going to be much appreciated. And you'll see we have a description and definitions column, and we've got definitions and some of those that we thought would be, maybe could be interpreted different ways or may not be clear. But especially if there's one that, you say like, oh, I really need more of a definition for this, please put that in the comments. Yeah, all comments will be good and useful, and then we'll have a little discussion about that later in the session as well. Oh, and then I will just point out one more thing in the next tab on this. So we put together, I will call this a preliminary first pass sort of crosswalk. And so, so we've got like the pretty common ISO metadata format for environmental data. And I went through and tried to find what seemed like the most logical, metadata field to contain answers to some of these questions. So definitely feel free to refer to that. This is not tried and tested. You guys are the ones testing it. So no promises that these will answer every question. And again, I would love to know in those comment fields if you guys find good answers to the checklist in other places. And then we've got some other sort of like the CF convention and others too. And then we also did a little bit of a crosswalk with how some of these questions and information relate to evaluations that we might see for analysis ready data or in the DSMM. So you can refer to that as it is useful. And yeah, so the main thing, oh wait, and I also want to say, or actually, let me scroll down. So you'll see at the bottom, this is going to generate a score. So as you start putting numbers in, it will generate scores. And these are really, just for information, and we'll talk at the end about how useful these metrics are or aren't, or how we might make the metric itself more useful. But for today's purposes, it'll at least help us have like a little bit of opportunity for prizes. So Rob just recently made us some really cool stickers. And so I will give a sticker to whoever scores the lowest on their data set and wants to talk about why that needs improvement, and whoever scores the highest on a data set and what might be some strong points of that data set. And just because we're in Pennsylvania, I will also give a sticker to anyone who wants to admit that they have tried Scrapple for the first time since they've been here. If you don't know what that is, you don't get the sticker.
All right, thanks, Stacy. And question so far about this assessment tool. Yes, please run the mic, somebody.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, for the online people, please make sure it's yeah.
Can you provide some example data sets that we can access?
Yep, you're ahead of us. Yes, we will do that. And just want to first make sure that everyone clear about this assessment tool.
Has anyone had trouble getting to it or making a copy or renaming it? Everyone's got that?
Yeah, there's a question in the back. 2, 3. I see 3. Rob, there are questions in the back. Philemon.
You have the scale of 0, 1. What about for those self-describing data, like the NCDM, where the metadata is embedded already? So, how do you store that?
So yeah, I think if you have that metadata information for example, for the field value, you should say that yes, the information is documents linked in or in the machine readable structured metadata, right? Because that's a field value in the metadata already. So that would be 3 actually, info in machine readable structured metadata. Any other questions before we go into the list of the potential data sets? Yes, Rob, there's a question.
I see a question about outliers, and I'm just wondering. I mean, sometimes outliers or
So I think that's a good question. I would say put not applicable, or because we are more thinking about. So that's a good question. Sometimes for example, the anomaly is not something it's something people are interested in. So for example, anomalous like high temperature in observation. So that's something people are interested in. So that is, if you cannot find any information about outliers documented about this data set, you should put no or no information, choose 0. All right, and I think we are right on time, about the 30 minutes background and overview. So I think we did well. And it's time to go to do the assessment. So this is the Penguin tell you that you have 1 hour. And if you go to the shared Google Drive using the link bit.ly/AI dash ready, that you'll see a list of climate data sets for assessments. If we open it, that we have populated a list of the data sets. So if you have your own data set that you want to do assessment, please do so. But for people who don't have their own data sets and you want to do assessment, here are several data sets we pulled together from different sources from NOAA and from NASA and USGS, different and some other universities. You can do the assessment. So that have a link to those data sets. Pick the one that speaks most to you and to do the assessment. And you can do as many data sets as you want. Sometimes people they know the data set really well, so they finish assessment in 15 or 20 minutes. But if it's a totally new data set, it may take you a little bit longer to find the information that's needed for the assessment. So pick one or few from the list, and then you can do the assessment. And Pen, Tamar, Stacy, Rob, and myself will be able to answer any questions. So for people online, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. We will be able to that. I see Ed said he caught dibs on the echo data, the temperature and salinity data, but other people can also do assessment because you can help us understand difference between the people who are producing the data and the external assessors for the assessment process. That will be also good information to know as well. So it's not one versus one match. So we can have multiple people assess the same data set as well.
Yeah, it would actually be.
Mic, please, Stacy, using mic.
I think it'll actually be really cool to get an idea of how different might score an individual. Actually, while I have this, I was just curious if you also be really interesting to see like how we'll be interested in the feedback session to get your feedback on like how easy it was to answer questions about your own data set versus some of these that you're just encountering on the website the first time today. Yeah, carry on, and we'll circulate around.
Yeah, we'll do this assignment for an hour, and feel free to go grab water or coffee. And if you just want to walk around to think about which answer you should choose for that.
Question on data source
Yeah.
term single aggregated. So if let's say you have database outside the same something, do you consider that a single source or aggregate?
Can you speak it more? Are you saying, because when I saying single or multi-source, we're more talking about if you combine multiple data sources to put them into one data.
Consider as aggregate.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're just about halfway through on the evaluation exercise. Is anyone having any questions that are getting them stuck or particularly bothersome questions? Oh, yeah. If you want, you can shout it out and I'll just repeat it for the online. Yes. So I think if I'm understanding right, is it that there are some questions that just seem to be like a super cut and dried yes or no, and the numbers aren't relevant. So I mean, I guess would that question be equally cut and dried to a computer? Like, is there with the metadata or something else, could a computer figure out that yes and no just as easily? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so I think if that answer is yes, then presumably a computer like running a script to visit that website would also be able to figure that out just as easily. So I would mark it a 3. Yeah, but I guess like in this case, it's probably something that's available on the website that you're going to for the data, right? So like in the same place that you would go to get the metadata, you would also see that it was available for direct download. So I would count that as like easily person plus machine readable. So I'd give it a 3.
Yes. What's the difference between smart data and data? They're the same thing, right? Yeah. Are they actually the same?
So the question was if the metadata is the same as the data dictionary. And I would say no. I would say a data dictionary is part of metadata, but you could have metadata that describes like the file structure and how it was created and has an abstract, but doesn't have the dictionary that defines like all of the variables and stuff like that. So I would say the data dictionary is kind of like defining all of the variables and what those entail.
I see. So the metadata, but for the metadata, does that mean it's putting the database actually? But how do you define base
I should probably let someone far more computer sciencey than me answer what constitutes machine readable. But I would think the more structured, like if it's all in an abstract and you have to read a narrative, like I mean, I guess in theory, something that's doing like natural language processing could get that, but it's not going to be very easy or very clear cut.
I think
for example, I think hierarchy. I think that's the difference. So you would ask the structure certain direction. Probably be reinforced by the abstract, but the ontology is like keywords is what machine readable because it's explicit. The natural language sort of what type of characters and stuff like that. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Grammars crosswalk. Yes, that's
can
Are you familiar with DSM?
oh,
Is that an ontology?
I don't think it's
I mean, it's basically a table of metadata.
it's a table of metadata. I think it's a catalog. It's cataloging framework to do things. So
Different.
yeah, different from ontology, I would say.
Yeah. So, and if anyone else wants to, and I'll have it in the Robinson. I made a new. But yeah, so if anyone, yeah.
I just want to say I counted the number of forms. We have about almost 40 people doing the assessment, which is great. And we have a question in the back.
Sure. My question is, some of these questions is yes, prefer the data set, no for they have really good basic history portion of the data set. How would you capture that?
I would say if for example, if the data set does not separate each individual variables into multiple data files or multiple data set, I would consider them all in one. So just using aggregated as that. We can be more granular in the future, trying to say, okay, this specific variable is aggregated, but that one is a single source. So right now, I would say just using the aggregated because you including multiple ones in here. But if it's separated into different files, then this one will be aggregated, the other one will be single source.
Hey guys, I just wanted to check in on time. Are people, is this like going super slow? Like you don't even feel like you've scratched the surface? Or are most people like blown on to their third data set? Or like, okay, so apparently not that one. Um,
Wait, show of hands. So have you finished one of the data set? We got about like half dozen finished one data set. Are you on to a second one? Anyone on to a second one? No? Too much to do a second one?
Very
Okay.
good.
That's
Work-life
good.
balance, it's important.
Check your email over there where you want.
So if you didn't finish, do you feel like you will be able to finish in the next 15 or so minutes? Some.
Right.
Okay.
Even if you just completed part of it, we want to hear your feedback in the session today. So
Yeah,
just
there's no pressure to finish, just kind of trying to check out like how much of a time commitment it really is to go through one of these assessments from scratch.
also one thing is that this spreadsheet is available throughout. It's forever. So feel free to complete assessments even after the Easter meeting has ended. And we're going to provide some information on how to join the cluster call later on of this session as well.
And if you complete the checklist later, the form might even be improved based on all of your great comments.
All right, and we have 5 minutes away from the break. So another check to see how many people have finished assessment for one data set. We got a little bit more, which is great. We see progress here, and I see there are at least 4 people or 3 or 4 people online said they finished their assessment as well. So
Should we go ahead and do our little ice score contest? You know, great.
I would say give people 5 more minutes because some people haven't finished the assessment. That's not fair to.
Um, okay, I figured out how we can do the high score, low score. Post-it notes. So when we take a break in a few minutes, then you're headed out to the break. So you've got the core, it's gonna give you the average score from each of those 4 categories. Just total of your total score. I'll put some post-it notes up on the front thingy there. So if you, well, I guess you don't even have to say your higher rate. Just put your score, and then I'll look through them and see. Hi, as well.
So is that total like adding the categories?
Yeah, so just for the sake of having one single number add up your 4 categories. But I guess for saying the reason we have all 4 of those categories is, just to compartmentalize the scores a little bit, and of course for different uses might be like much more concerned about one of those aspects than the others. But so yes, so I think if we were really using these to evaluate data, we would care a lot about the separateness of the scores, but for the sake of stickers, add them up to one score. Post-it notes here.
Literally,
Oh, I posted it.
Follow through my bird theme of the day. We're gonna call it a break time. And just like this penguin, everyone needs some stretch break. So we have 15 minutes till 3:45 Eastern time. Come back at that time. We'll have some reflection and discussion about the assessment process to help us improve the process. And yeah, I'm not sure if they have coffee out there, but no. Oh, well, there's water. So go get some water and stretch your legs. Be back in 15 minutes, please. So we got about one, two, three, four, five. More than a dozen submitted scores on the sticker notes. And on sticky notes, and I think Stacy have read through all those numbers. And first of all, this is not competition. There's no shaming on any data set at all. Its whole idea is to help the improvement for the future. So it's not ranking any data sets. So what's the lowest score you find, Stacy?
Lowest is F. Divodisa. I don't know if they're S. Sorry, S. Divodisa. Not in the room. What about Colette B? Are you in the room? So, did you add up your scores or average them?
I added.
Okay, that's pretty low.
Well,
Just checking.
some shaming is going
I know. No, there's no shame. Next question. The next question.
so do you mind to share why you see a low score? So which parts gives you the lowest score? Is that documentation or access or quality or preparation piece?
Um, data quality was the highest.
Can we have a mic? Well, okay, thanks.
So this is the data set that I brought that I knew existed and had asked. It was published through the Bureau of Land Management, I guess 5 years ago, and I knew it existed, so I just asked them to email me. And so almost all of the information about the data was given to us that I had with them, and then we just sent a CSV that was like kind of processed, which a lot of missing data, the methods weren't well laid out. So I think there's like a reason they haven't publicized it, but I think that's pretty much essentially the story.
Okay, great. Thanks for sharing. And stickers. And yes, I think documentation is the key to allow those assessment here in a publicly accessible information. Okay, we have a high score.
Honorary mention.
We have an honorary mention because that is on our it's a team member who created his data set directly. So the highest score is like 10.7 by Chris Locum. There, you can raise your hand, people can see you, but you don't get sticker.
Although, but you could tell us, like, what of your insider information helped you develop a really AI-ready data set?
Well, I think the insider information is we're following the standards following system. So it just so happens that it also checks a lot of AI ready data assessment elements, and then also that we're using it. So I think that's kind of needed for the
Great. And we also have two scores just popped in the chat online. So one from Carolina, which is 9.06 total, and one from Ed Armstrong, which I based on the scores, did a quick calculation. I think that would be around 9.1 or 9.05 score. So, and what's the high score you find in the room?
Well, so we would owe those guys a sticker by mail, and maybe we'll follow up with that. Yes. A recount. So yeah, so those guys with the 9s would actually be our next in line, but since they're not in the room, our next winner of a sticker, we'll try to get you guys stickers through the mail. But our next winner in the room is James G with an 8.4. Who is James?
I think James still having coffee outside.
Okay.
So
Well, if we know James, we can get him his sticker.
yeah, we can save it for him. We'll have more opportunities for the stickers later on during the session. So now we are.
I was wondering what the distribution of the assessments were. Like, they're a whole bunch of 3s, but mostly 9s and 10s.
You know what? I totally wanted to stick the stickers up on the wall, but it's fuzzy, so they wouldn't.
So maybe we can talk about this when while we are getting feedback on the assessment process. So what we're going to do now is to collect your feedback. So the whole feedback collecting process is following this like 3 watts process. So you just did the assessment, right? You know how the assessment process look like. That's the number 1 watt at the bottom of the ladder. So what we want to do now, you already also provide your feedback in the assessment form. There's a column specifically for feedback and comments during the assessment process. What we want to do now is to give you 2 minutes solo thinking time to think about the entire assessment process and then put down a paper or just open up any like doc or text like editors on your computer to write down what worked in the assessment process, what did not work well in the assessment process. So that's the first step. Don't start doing that yet. The second step, we would like you to get into groups of 4 or 5. And for people online, we haven't forgot you. So you will be thrown into a breakout rooms. I think now we have 9 people online, but I think except the several people in the room, so we might just need 1 breakout room, so everyone can go in there. Yeah. When you are in a group of 4 or 5, start talking about your experience with this assessment process. That's the so what. So what do you get from it? And the next step is that discussing what the information will be helpful to. So the 3 questions, I'm going to close the chat because you will not see the questions. The first one is that what worked well and not so well during the assessment, what information would be helpful to improve the assessment process, and the last question is that can anyone use this assessment tool? I know some of you use your own data set to do the assessment, some of you use the data set that we provide in a list. If what information do the assessors need to know about the data to complete assessment? So this is still the slides on Mentimeter. You should be able to see those questions. So once you are in the breakout room groups or the small groups, please go to the Google Doc where we have put down, or people already started providing feedback. That's great. And so there are 3 questions that each group should just jot down your notes in this Google Doc to provide feedback about the assessment process for the 3 questions. So with that, I'm going to start the 2 minutes solo thinking or writing time that just pull up a paper or a text editor on your computer or your notes pad. 2 minutes starts now. Not yet. Yeah. No, the solo is just for your own notes. You don't have to like write down it. But for when we are doing the groups, each group should like just provide your feedback in the note. Oh, everyone's already writing it. Great.
I think if you want to put your name and especially if you want to get feel free, but there's no
I'm going to switch away because I don't want to be influenced by other people. One more minute for your solo thinking. Thirty more seconds. All right, now Sarah, if you can put all the people online into a breakout room, not in this main room, for 12 minutes. So in this 12 minutes, for people in the room, please.
I thought it was well structured. And 3 other people did. But not so far, I thought some of the questions. I have a lot of domain knowledge, and it's still some questions that I'm scratching my head. Question 2, what information will be helpful for the assessment process? I think a primer, I mentioned this, that really goes into the details, which is looked at the discretion of the individual. I know about this stuff, what primer I got doing that. That would be really useful. Question 3, can anyone use this assessment tool? I would say no. There are concepts. Somebody off the street, you mean anybody I still think what information again? That's all I really want.
Any other comments or feedback? We got one more slot for people to provide feedback. Don't be shy, stickers.
Stickers.
Gotta give a statement of appreciation. I don't need to say.
Anyone from the back group willing to maybe summarize?
I'm okay.
Of course, they were all there.
What do you got one there?
There's one. Oh, one's Kathy, and then the other side. Yeah.
So I think we agreed that this really needed to be targeted towards specific vendors, data providers, and so probably language that they used to talk about it. Yeah, examples of the good versus high versus low scoring. Examples of data sets that are also continuum of ML.
Thank you, Kathy. I'm gonna run to you, give you stickers, and Sarah, if you can get Mike to the other side. Right.
I hope I summarized this right, but one thing that we thought about is the AI writing part of part of it just, it felt like an nebulous definition because it's one question was about targets and labels. There's a lot of AI algorithms to build. So it felt more like what should be called supervised learning as opposed to AI. Something, or maybe it also felt like this exercise might trying to maybe come up with a framework for answering these questions because it just didn't feel kind of definition of AI.
I think to address that question, I think, Rob, if you can give the stickers, is that ask that question about the labels or targets gives the option to be for both supervised and unsupervised. So you don't have to have that information for unsupervised, but you really need that for supervised learning. So that gives additional information to assess whether it's ready or not. And I think that goes to some of the question will be use case dependent, just like especially for the preparation piece that is trying to identify what process has been done there. So allow that, it most likely becomes a label, allow the users to filter through. For example, if they need those gap-free, gap-filled data set, they can pick that label saying, oh, this is gap filled, so I can use it for my application. And or if this has target identified, so this is something for me to use for a supervised learning application. So I think getting the information more would be helpful, at least in this stage. And I think that link speaks to the next activity we're trying to do is to design how we want to present this assessment results to in a way that's user targeted for the users. Because right now we're doing the assessment, so we haven't really talked about how to present the result. Nobody wants to see assessment report to figure out if that data set is useful for an application or not, right? I see Stacy has some comments.
Yeah, and Douglas, you just did a great job of mentioning a lot of. Yeah, I was going to say, I think in the next segments, that'll be a really great thing, right? Like there's what the questions that are in this form, and then there's like how do you want to see them and how do you want to parse them so that people can kind of create their own tailored use case specific output from this questionnaire. So yeah, so definitely keep those ideas going in the back of the head section.
Speaking of that, we're going to move on to some Jamboard activity. So I'm sure everyone loves Jamboard, right? And so if you go to, again, the same Google Drive, that there is a Jamboard there that has opened up multiple pages. So what we want you to do is that oh, so many things on the on. I need my two screens for the virtual meeting. One screen doesn't cut it anymore. So now it's a design sprint. So what we want you to do is to, again, in a group, trying to think about this chart. So imagine yourself as a data user, trying to find data for the application. It doesn't have to be really experienced AI. Just imagine you are an AI developer. So what metrics or representation of the assessment results can help you for the data discovery or choose the right data for you. So you all did the assessments, some of it complete, some of them incomplete, but that's okay. So I think we're gonna shrink the timing a little bit. So think about this in your mind right now for like 2 or 3 minutes, and then go back to the to your group. And for people who joined a little bit later after the break, you can just find a group that close to you, or you see there's people that need more help or need more company. So join those groups and then discuss and then put your design into the Jamboard. So the Jamboard have 15 pages, so that should be, oh, Doug already put the name on it. Great. So go in there and then to pick one page to start to thinking about what design would look like. It can be it can be a drawing, can be just writing down the elements you think should be there for this matrix. So again, go back to a group, but the first 3 minutes, just first 3 minutes, just think about it by yourself. I'm gonna go to an empty page. I don't want Doug's thought influence other people. So going back to the same group, think about what a metric or representation of the assessment result should look like. So I'll give you 3 minutes to think about on your own, and then go to the Jamboard in a group to talk about it and then put the information down. Again, who at the end we'll have a sharing, but we have 3 more stickers left. Who want to share at that time will get the stickers. Right, it's time to wrap up the discussion, and we'll get back together once we have all our virtual participants joining back us. At the meantime, that here's a distribution or the histogram of the assessment score for the 15 that submitted today. So you can see there, I would not say, I cannot really give a name of this distribution yet, but looks like quite evenly spread out at different levels. There's lower scores. There's also some of the high scores. But I think 5, 6, 7, 8 are the most common ones if you try to get a mode out of this distribution. Right, I think we have everyone, yes, everyone back from the breakout rooms. Always nice to see people smiling when they come back to the to the main rooms. So it's not fighting and hating each other. And we have 3 stickers, so anyone want to share out their discussion within the group of what they think, how to best represent the assessment results. We have the mic. I know it's almost 5, but there's still 3 stickers.
There are different stickers. We need to help you. What else you got?
Now you know that NFT is worth a lot more.
What?
Between the 3 of us, we interpreted the question. We came up with the idea that it was what you would be looking for, how to find a data set with the data set, right? So we talked about identifying what you're trying to measure. So that's the initial question. Then we have items being on the cloud and the data format would be. And then another was about searching for the data, that natural language session that was yesterday, and they talked about trying to find data, knew that there was data on trees. So they were looking for trees and forests, and they couldn't find the data, and it turned out it was labeled as vegetation. So that right there needs knowing all of what you need to be looking for.
Great, thanks, Terry.
Give her a sticker.
Thanks, Doug, for keeping us on toes. Next, we have 2 more opportunity for people. Yes, Nathal?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, so our first problem if we are AI users, yes, by the way, we are on Slack. Basically, first thing we're interested in is like the extent and resolution of the data, space and time. That's not basically, if you're interested in network or non-very have that information that is not useful to us. And of course, some sort of data calculation methods, this. Yeah, we just mentioned that if one type of data set is not labeled properly, or you're missing a large portion of work, do some sort of classification, you have a lot more of maybe one type of verification than the other that unbiased data. And that will be an information that will like, basically non-biased. And finally, we're interested in like wide delivery, data delivery or format data. So we provided it in suite, in terms of if you are users and like
Thanks, Nafal. There's stickers there. Thank you. One more opportunity. I think there's one there or in the back, right?
Number 15.
The number 15? Okay. Great.
We're not sure what we're doing, so we thought the best way for us to be able to make an assessment of what we need is to assume that we are, because all of this thing has to be a case-to-case basis. I think it was already referred to earlier in some earlier discussion. So we assume that we're developing an AI module for plankton classification. Okay, so the first step, of course, is to save all the images be classified in a particular given data format. And in our remarks, there will be a lot of things that needs to be done for the data to be classified. I'm sure that a lot of people in this room may have experience in order of doing such. Then step number 2 is to secure annotated and verified plankton images from trusted sources. Now that is very relative. And all data for it to be ready for the learning process, we will have to separate the data and segregate them folders by species. Remember, this data needs to be annotated as a requirement. They should be cleaned for noises. They should be corrected for color and lights effects. And of course, we also need to make sure that all of these images in the annotated trusted source would have to contain only one species of the plankton. If there are lots of them, they will not be part of the training or the unsupervised training pool. And of course, in next tree, you have to run in the learning process, it's going to take training. But the thing there is that you have to run the confusion matrix to evaluate the model that was created and so on and so forth. So I guess at the point of AI readiness, were those the 2 yellow boxes below actually are remarks for the blue boxes.
So, following up, what do you think the assessment results may help with that? So, how you represent the assessments information can help you to achieve those remarks in the yellow box. So, what information is most important in those assessments?
On the assessment of the results.
Yeah.
What is very important there, but we'll never know because most of the AI algorithms are in a black box.
I'm saying the assessment of your data sets, how those.
The assessment of the data set will come on to step number 4. Using the data that was prepared in number 1, you run the model to classify. So if you run it, the assessment will go, it's on the 3rd yellow box there that says confusion matrix.
Yep, okay.
Okay, so you develop the confusion matrix to evaluate the model,
And then from there, you can make an assessment whether or not the data that you're using is good or bad. If you are able to classify at 95% probability rate, that would be good. But then you have a very good data. If otherwise, then a lot of confusion going on, then you can easily make a statement that this is not not good source of data to work with. So yeah, confusion matrix is a way to evaluate the model itself. Was generated.
Great. Thanks. Yeah, I think given the time, we only have 5 minutes left, and thanks for everyone who provide feedback. I'm gonna restart the slides. So I'm gonna thank you everyone for attending the session today, actually, and just want to say something about the next steps for that work. So the goal for this session is actually trying to kick off ongoing effort to create a pilot collection of those climate data sets from different sources that can be used for AI applications. So all those assessments report you have generated helps us to understand how those data sets are at different level, different stages of those AI applications. And next step will be looking at all your assessment results and then trying to continue the design of what AI readiness metrics will look like to represent those assessment results, and then come up with a public web page based on housing ESIP, trying to summarizing those results of the assessment and also the data set and link it to the original source. So we're not trying to create a new data set, but linking it through the original source. For example, if data is from NASA, have those link back to NASA, and then also linking to the proper documentations, how people can use it. And same thing for the NOAA data set and USGS data sets. So for people who want to join the efforts continued into the future in the next 4 to 6 months, that you can always go back to our data readiness cluster webpage, which is the wiki page down the bottom, and join us. We have our next cluster meeting, I would say August 16th, but it's all in this Google Doc. So yes, also August 18th at 1 p.m. Eastern time. So please join us if you can. And again, I want to thank Gapen from University of Alabama Huntsville, Tamar Norkin from USGS, Stacy Robinson from NOAA, Rob Redman from NOAA, and Charlie Haley, who helped design some of the activities, and for everyone who are in the room participating in this session, and also Sarah Ali, Sahara, Sarah Ali, the community fellow who is supporting this session. Thank you everyone for joining, and please feel free to reach out if you have any questions or feedback about this activities. Great. Thanks, Ed, Carolina, Melissa, and Ali on the call.
Yeah, thanks Douglas and all for hosting this very useful session. I actually learned something, and I think we all learned something, and look forward to kind of looking at some of the summarized results as well. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Ed.
Cheers, everybody. Thanks.
Thanks, Melissa.